The conspiracy against Andrew Yang is afoot. For those of you who don't know, I truly like Andrew Yang, and I like him more and more every time I see him talk about his ideas and try and break things down. I have tremendous respect for this man. His mic was cut. I believe it to be factually correct right now to say as a statement of fact, his mic was either cut or muted. And we have 3 videos showing this. It's really insane. So first, I talked about this the other day, but I want to get into this because there's a lot more evidence showing that MSNBC has been systematically marginalizing Andrew Yang. I get it. A lot of conservatives think he's nuts, his UBI plan is nuts, and a lot of Democrats think his UBI plan is nuts. I'm not a big fan of his UBI plan. I think he's explained it very well, and his idea isn't crazy, but the bigger issue at play is that when he talks about UBI, what he's really doing, in my opinion, is a big ask. The way that Trump talks about this strategy, it's very similar. I think Yang is a smart guy. The big ask is basically to propose something outrageous, so when you walk it back, you have a more reasonable position that you've brought to the forefront. In Yang's position, he's saying we're going to do UBI. Well, look, if Yang got elected as president, he can't do that. He can push the idea, and what's really being talked about now is the threat of automation and how Donald Trump got elected by pointing out the loss of jobs. Yang is a smart guy. But MSNBC has removed him from polls. They've even ignored his name. They've read through a list and skipped his name. Then what happens at the debate last night? Or not last night, the other night. You can hear in multiple videos him faintly talking as if he's in another room. How? Because his mic was likely muted and other mics were picking him up. This to me is, it's how they play the game. They're cheating. And look, I'm actually excited to talk about this. I don't like to be preachy in terms of like why I'm supporting a certain candidate or why I agree with them or why I don't. It comes out a lot though. I never want to make a video directly being like, I made one video where I was like Tulsi and Yang and here's why I support them. I have no problem talking about it in videos because I know people will send criticism my way and I get a ton of questions like, how could you support this man or Tulsi Gabbard? So I'm going to be able to talk about it. But I want to show you how the media is doing basically what they did with Bernie Sanders. NBC. In my video earlier today on my main channel, I talked about how NBC is trying to claim Yang and Gabbard are only getting support because of trolls. Not true. Totally not true. Yang was trending #1 US on Twitter because no one was hearing him speak. They didn't even ask him any questions. Okay, they asked him, I think, 2 questions or 3 questions. And then the next day, when it turned out we saw his mic was cut off, then he starts trending again. You don't have to like Yang, but I'm really impressed, and I don't know what the right word is, but I have tremendous respect for all the conservatives there's a lot of tweets going around where they're like, look, man, I don't agree with Yang, but that's crazy what they're doing to him, silencing him and shutting him down. He deserves to have a chance to speak, same as anybody else. And also, for those that aren't supporters of him, recognize that I, as well as many other people who supported him, did so to see him speak on a national stage. Listen, I don't expect Yang or Gabbard to get elected. I just think they have things to say that people should hear, and by supporting them, you're putting them in a position to say those things. Gabbard got her message out about war. I was excited. And as were many conservatives, really incredible. Drudge, apparently Gabbard's like #1 on Drudge. I'm like, these are good candidates, common sense Democrats that actually speak to Republicans on some issues as well. But what they did to Yang, check this out. Let's go through a little bit of this. The evidence is crazy. Good on Heavy for compiling this. I'm really impressed. Stephanie Dube-Dwilson put together a ton of evidence showing MSNBC is screwing with Andrew Yang. First, we have this video from the Democratic debate. I'm going to play. You might not. It's hard to know. It's hard to get this across because it requires audio. But basically, in this video, we can see. You got Bernie talking. And then you can see Yang raise his hand. I did highlight this the other day. And he opens his mouth and no sound comes out. This is the first video I talked about. But there's one thing I want to point out that I didn't notice. Heavy noticed this, or I believe Yang supporters noticed and Heavy report on it. When Yang starts talking, 3 people, Biden looks at him, Marianne Wilson looks at him, and I think who's that, Hickenlooper? They all look at him. He's talking loud enough that you can hear him talking next to him. But we hear nothing. A lot of people said, oh, it's crazy. NBC has denied cutting his mic. I believe they're lying. A lot of people have said, this is a weird conspiracy. Oh, we shouldn't play this game. Dude, the idea that Yang would pretend to mouth something so that he could then claim his mic was cut off, that's the conspiracy. When Joe Biden, you can see him turned his head, I believe Hickenlooper turned his head, and Marianne Williamson turned their head, it's because he said something loud enough that they heard him and turned to hear him talk. His mic picked up nothing. How is that possible? Everyone else was interrupting. There's more, though. So there's a, where is it at? Okay, so in this post from Yang 2020 on Reddit, in the Yang subreddit, they've got 3 posts. In one, it sounds like Yang is in a different room altogether. You hear a moderator clearly, and then you hear Yang try to interject, and his mic is not on. I believe you hear him faintly because he's being picked up by other mics. They say Yang coughs here, and it doesn't sound very loud for a mic'd cough, especially given how loud the throat clearing is in the clip below. So they have 3 instances where you can clearly hear that his mic is either off or really low, but I think it was off. And I think you're hearing other microphones pick him up. Now, you want to argue it's a conspiracy theory? I think you're wrong. I think we have video evidence of Yang saying words, people looking at him, and no sound coming out. So what more do you want? But check this out. MSNBC has repeatedly marginalized Andrew Yang. So a lot of people are saying basically here, like, you know, we donated to get him on the stage to hear what he had to say. I'm not donating to Yang under the expectation he will become president. And I know that kind of sucks for a lot of Yang supporters who are excited about his campaign and to see him win. I'm mostly looking at it from a pragmatic point of view, that by supporting Yang and Gabbard, they will be on that stage and provide that common sense pushback to the nonsense. Yang raised his hand for giving undocumented immigrants healthcare. I'm not playing that game. He deserves criticism for that. But I still wanted to hear what he had to say, and I didn't get to. So here's the thing. This person, Scott Santens, points out, with Let Yang Speak now trending across the country, I feel I should expand this thread with some more examples of blatant MSNBC shenanigans in their treatment of Andrew Yang. Here's where they spoke over his appearance at the Poor People's Campaign Forum. Or how about when MSNBC removed Yang to add in someone who isn't even qualified to be in the debates? This is like Bernie Sanders all over again. Yang is an outsider, not a politician, and they're not going to allow him to win. I think they look at him in a similar way that they kind of look at Trump, a businessman trying to become a politician. But regardless, MSNBC is full in for the Democrats, and this is the game they're playing. Someone said, holy S, they did it. The crazy bastards did it. MSNBC created a graphic with the photos of the 20 candidates to appear in the first debates, and they actually went so far as to remove Andrew Yang and include someone who didn't even qualify. Look at this one. This guy Scott says, isn't it kind of odd how they went with 7 bars here instead of 8? It's totally asymmetrically unappealing. Does it look like someone is missing? The number 8 spot belongs to Andrew Yang with 1.1%. Why would they do that? Dude, it's on purpose, man. I'm sorry. Now, this was the craziest one. In this video from MSNBC, we can see in this list, you've got Joe Biden, Sanders, Warren, Buttigieg, Harris, O'Rourke, Booker, and Yang. Yang is up 1 point, polling at 2%. And what do? I kid you not, they read the list and stop at Cory Booker. They don't read Yang. How? They have to do it. Has to be on purpose. Like, they are purposefully not giving him a chance to speak up. Now, look, when asked about climate change, Yang jumps to UBI in the debates, and I thought that was a bad move. He said, with UBI, climate change would be easier to, dude, that was a bad answer. I do think it's fair to point out, if it were Trump with his mic off, he would start throwing a fit. He'd start going like, hey, wait, stop. He'd lean over to someone else's mic and be like, my microphone is off. Can you fix my microphone? That's the assertiveness that got Trump elected. Yang doesn't have it. And you know what? That's fair criticism. I'm not a crazy person. I get it. But as I pointed out, I want Yang to be on that stage to present his ideas, to forward a conversation about automation and how it's going to impact our country. He did not get the chance to do that. There's even more, though. Look at this. Joy Reid posts this graphic, no Yang, and someone points out Yang's polling higher than 3 of these people. So look, I feel like I could just look how much evidence. This is crazy. There's all of this evidence compiled by Heavy showing that MSNBC has been removing Yang from the conversation, period. Now, I will say this. Good on Brian Stelter at CNN for having Yang on and calling them out. Andrew Yang says, our media coverage is growing, though sometimes a nudge helps. Brian Stelter of CNN had Yang on, and they brought this up specifically how MSNBC didn't include him in a graphic, but they've done it several times. So respect to Brian Stelter for getting Yang in and highlighting this. People need to hear it. Unfortunately, it's a different audience. CNN's audience is not the same as MSNBC's, nor is it as big. I'm not saying this to be disrespectful. I've brought it up in the past. But what they're doing, I mean, I'll say this too, at least MSNBC is including Gabbard, but they are removing Yang. Gabbard had a chance to speak. She got her ideas out, and she did a really good job of it, and I'm happy to hear it. Yang didn't, and I believe they're okay with Gabbard. They're not okay with Yang. It's plain and simple. They're like the poll didn't even read his name. But you get the point. Cheating, look, I've got to say in my opinion, but cheating is afoot, okay? In my opinion, cheating is afoot. They're not going to allow this man. Now, of course, I got to say one more thing. There are absolutely people taking this to identity politics. If you're a social justice activist and you want to play the game, don't be surprised when people play the game back. And people are pointing out the only Asian candidate to be on that stage is being marginalized by MSNBC. And they're calling it racist. But I will add, somewhat, I'm half joking here. What happens when Asians are discriminated against? The left doesn't care. They say it's justified. I'm talking about like the Harvard lawsuit or whatever. Yeah, they justify it. That's racist. You got an Asian man on stage. Why is he the only one getting cut off? I really don't think it's about race. I think it's a silly argument. But of course, people will take whatever they can to their advantage. I think they're cutting off Yang on purpose because they're cheaters and because he's an outsider who's challenging the Democrat establishment. They saw what happened when Bernie came in, an independent, and upset the system, and they got mad. And they're not going to let someone do it again. I'm going to end with one final thought. I absolutely adore Marianne Williamson. I hope I'm getting her name right. I absolutely adore like all of her tweets and what she is saying. I don't think she's going to win, but you have to recognize, okay, if you've seen her tweets, they're silly, lovey things about like letting God's love shine through a lamp or something. It's all just so hokey and wholesome. It's like good feeling nonsense, right? It's like a sweet little old granny saying nonsense to you, but with a smile, and it makes you feel good. So I absolutely adore all of the silliness, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I'm looking at all the tweets people are pointing out from her where they're like, look how silly and crazy this is. And I'm like, yeah, but she's on Twitter and she's very nice and wholesome. She's bringing positivity and like this like hippie crystal wearing love. I'm like, I think politics could use some of that right now. So anyway, I am unironically considering supporting her in the primary depending on what happens, just because she is, okay, look, so Yang and Gabbard I was excited for because of what they bring to the table in terms of the conversation. But I want to hear Marianne Williamson bring that crystal-wearing, hippy-dippy, lovey stuff to the debate, too. So maybe I'll throw some donations her way, Look, I gotta say, I was telling some Republicans, you will meme her into the presidency. I try to say it with a straight face. I don't think so. But all of the jokes and all the memes around her, like, hey, man, that's powerful stuff. Like, it works for Ocasio-Cortez, it works for Trump. I'll wrap it up here. I've got one more video to talk about in a similar vein. Conservatives defending Gabbard on principle, and I'm really impressed with this. So stick around. Next segment will be coming up in shortly, and I will see you there.